Welcome into another episode of Always Talking Ball with Tyler Noe and Lance Barton. We're a little over a month away from week 0. It's mid-July, which means it's preview magazine season. Our guest today has put in a ton of work this offseason to get us ready for the 2025 college football season with yet another tremendous magazine. It's out now. You can go to pick6previews.com, get a hard copy, get a digital copy, whichever you like. Brett Ciancia of Pick 6 Previews joins us. Welcome in, Brett.
Yeah, Tyler and Lance, thanks for having me on. You're right, it's magazine season. It's a crazy time of year for us, but it's a good crazy. We just got our first truckload of magazines sent out today. Another batch coming tomorrow. But yeah, it was it was a big project, the 2025 season with all the transfer movement, a lot of coaching carousel to talk about, and just a wide open season, really. So I'm excited to break it down with you guys.
Absolutely, Brett. And hey, man, it's an honor to have you on. We appreciate you hopping on here with us. But Brett, we're a national show here, so we're going to hit you with a couple of different teams and some questions about some different conferences. But before we get into that, man, this seems like it is the most wide open that college football has been in a long time heading into the season. There isn't just like 2 or 3 teams that have significantly better rosters than the rest of the pack, like we've seen in the recent past with like Ohio State last year and some of the Bama, Saban, and Kirby UGA teams. You've been doing Pick 6 previews for a long time, man. You've been at it for a while. Is this as wide open as you've seen it in a while?
I think so. Yeah, I launched in 2012. And back then it was the Saban dynasty. I mean, it was every year you pencil them in for the top 5 spot, if not a national title spot. And then, of course, you had the Georgia dynasty there a couple of years. You had Dabo's dynasty at Clemson, handful of years there. So for most of the 4-team playoff era, you kind of knew 2 or 3 of the teams right away. It was, but now you're talking, it's more wide open anyway. And you have an expanded bracket and you have these automatic bids to the conference winners. So you have a lot of new faces here included in the playoff bracket or the playoff outlook, which I'm sure brings a lot of excitement to more fan bases than usual. But yeah, I mean, you break it down, a couple of things. Ohio State and Oregon, 2 of the best recruiters, are really young this year. So that actually makes it more variable there in the Big Ten. I think an opportunity for Penn State. The SEC, you have 3 giants with Texas, Bama, and Georgia. And then, of course, you have LSU and A&M could punch above their weight and sneak into the bracket. The ACC I see as a 2-team race between Clemson and Miami. Clemson has your returning production coming off an ACC title win, but Miami is more your talent acquisition, the top recruiter, the top transfer portal team in the conference. And then we get to the Big 12 and talking about wide open, 14 years of Pick 6 previews. I think it's the most wide open conference I've ever had to forecast. It's crazy. I saw at the Big 12 media days, they did a poll, the coaches did a poll, and they picked Iowa State versus Kansas State. Neither of those 2 are even in my top 5. That's how wide open this thing is. I had them 6th and 7th. So really excited to break it down. I think that conference is going to be fun to watch, but really the whole national landscape is going to be fun to watch.
Hey, real quick, look at the bottom of the screen and hit that subscribe button. If it's already hit, we appreciate you very much. If not, it doesn't cost you a thing, and we appreciate you as well. Thank you. Let's start in the Midwest, in the Big Ten, where I live and where Lance lives. And you mentioned Penn State, man. I was scouring over your magazine. I was looking at the position groups. They're one of 3 teams to be in the top 15 in every position group alongside Texas and Ohio State. And it just seems roster-wise and position group-wise like they're as close as they've ever been to Ohio State. Is this finally the year James Franklin and Penn State, they can get over that hump, they can win some of these top 5 matchups and possibly get that national championship?
Yeah, I think so. Well, with Penn State, they've been so close over the years against Ohio State. They have second half leads, they have fourth quarter leads, and then they find a way to drop the game. But they're not getting blown out. They're always close in that ball game. And then they take care of business in their other 11 games. And they were great statistically last year. Part of my book is I have my advanced stats, my game grader, my opponent adjusted stats. I mean, they were top 10 in everything. So you had a stat giant last year. They made the Final Four. Really was 1 pass away from making a national title. But then what I really liked about Penn State was in January, a lot of guys could have gone pro, a lot of mid-rounders, and most of them came back to Happy Valley. So you have a really veteran team. You have a proven quarterback. I know he struggled against Notre Dame, but really strong quarterback, great backfield at running back, 2 of the best in the country. Offensive line brings 4 starters back that were all conference. And then the last part about Penn State that I love is the coordinators. And people will bring up James Franklin, and that's a liability in some people's opinions. But what I like is the brain power around him now. You got Andy Kotelnicki calling the offense for a second year, And then they went and stole Jim Knowles from Ohio State, arguably the best defensive mind in the game. So all that to say, I think it's an opportunity here for Penn State. They're veteran, while Oregon and Ohio State, with better recruiting profiles, are way younger and newer. So I think this is their little chance here in 2025 to go steal the conference and make a national title run. And one last note with Penn State, I put this into the book this year too. Is we know about recruiting and transfers, but how are these teams stocked with potential pros? So I put a column on the chart there for 2026 mock draft picks. I know it's early for a mock draft, but still, it's a good indicator. They're number 2 in the country with 12 mock draft picks already. So a lot of pro talent there, and I think it's a good pick to win the conference.
Yeah, Brad, we know the Big Ten now with these super conferences, they're stretching from coast to coast. So we're going to head out on the West Coast here, and a team that I'm personally bullish on heading into this season is Lincoln Riley and USC. The Trojans, they lost 5 games last year by an average margin of only 3.8 points per game. Riley, he didn't go out and try to get a quarterback in the portal. So that tells me that I think he likes what he has in QB Jaden Mayava. And they return one of the better wide receiver units in the country, led by Jacoby Lane and Mekhi Lemon. It's year 2 for stud defensive coordinator D'Anton Lynn. He really improved that Trojan D quite a bit year over year from 2023 to 2024. So what are your thoughts on SC and the Trojans this year?
Yeah, well, good to have you on board. I'm also bullish on USC. I like it. It's kind of a race for 4th place because I see those big 3, that Ohio State, Oregon, Penn State chunk. But from there, a race for 4th place, I'm picking USC. And you're right about last year. They were better than the record showed. I know 7-6 doesn't jump off the page, but 5 one-score losses, a lot of them were late leads that they couldn't finish off. You can't do the what-if game, but if you're looking forward for the 2025, that looks pretty strong. I think they can improve on that and win those close margins. When you think of USC, you think of recruiting and transfer, top 10 or top 15 in both categories. I think they were one of the biggest spenders this year. You see some lists come out about estimated spending in the portal. They were at the top of the Big Ten. So they're bringing more talent in. 2nd-year coordinator bonus, I like that. 2nd-year quarterback bonus, I like that. And it's one of my better bets for the year in terms of win totals too, because they check in at 7.5. I think they're going to crush that. I see 9+ for them, and 9-3 gets you into that playoff discussion. So I think they're ready for a breakthrough. And then high level with USC, hopefully they do have a breakthrough, because I want to see Lincoln Riley survive enough to get to next year, because right now they have the number 1 recruiting class. I know we're early, but projected wise, number 1 in the country for 2026. So I'd love to see him just bridge the gap one more year, keep those boosters and the hot seat cooled down, because I think next year could be really interesting for USC.
Yeah, Brett, you talk a lot about year 2 bonuses, but with Matt Rule in Nebraska, it is all about year 3. And his previous 2 stops, huge turnaround projects at Baylor and Temple. They drastically improved their win totals by 6-7 games a piece at those 2 stops. And then in your game grader, you talked about, I thought it was interesting, since he was hired, he's up their game grader score for 6.7 points. So he's one of the best hires of that cycle so far. Now, the big question is, obviously, they got to turn around and get wins on the field. Like, can they get to, that 9-win mark there in Lincoln?
Yeah, well, you're right about Matt Rule. He's been a proven program builder. He did it at Baylor and Temple. Now they're waiting for the year 3 bonus here at Nebraska. And a couple areas that I think they really beefed up their roster, and they needed to, is first the receiver core. They went out and took number 1 receivers off of 2 teams. They've got Dane Key from Kentucky and Isaiah Hunter from Cal. So you have the 5-star quarterback, and he's gonna improve in a 2nd year with Raiola. You got to get weapons around him. So I think they did a nice job there. I like that. And I also like they got some protection for him up front. Took 2 starters off of proven teams, with Pritchett coming from Alabama and Rocco Spindler from Notre Dame, one of the best lines in the country. So that I love the transfers they added there. Also, I think it's the year finally that their offensive line takes a step forward. We've been waiting for this pipeline to resurgence up there at offensive line. I think it's finally going to happen. They're so veteran. And then those 2 starters they pulled in just puts them over the top. So I'm looking at one of the most improved offenses in the country this year. Now, the problem is defensively, they just had their staff rated by Florida State. A lot of talent gone, 2 draft picks, I think, up front. So how quickly can they rebuild that front 7? But offensive wise, I think they're going to improve a lot and put them into play for definitely bowl season, maybe 8-9 wins.
All right, Brett. Let's head down to the southeast part of the country where it just means more. Let's talk. It's our first stop's going to be in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. It's year 2 for Kalen DeBoer, coming off a disappointing season to Alabama standards. Missing the college football playoff and winning 9 games. Now he's got his boy, his stud play caller and longtime friend that he's extremely comfortable with, an offensive coordinator, Ryan Grubb, back calling plays for him. A talented but unproven quarterback with former 5-star Ty Simpson and a deep wide receiver unit that actually fits this system more, and a ton of returning production on the defensive side of the ball that was really, really good down that back half of the stretch last year and that back half of their schedule with defensive coordinator Kane Womack's swarm defense. What are your expectations for the Tide this year in year 2 of the Kalen DeBoer era?
Yeah, I'm really high on Alabama, and actually last year I made my first trip down there, my first trip to any SEC game for that matter, and I was blown away by the game day atmosphere, by the tailgating, by the frat scene. I mean, I know we joke about it just means more, but after seeing that, I was thinking, man, it really does down here. It's crazy. So I encourage everyone to get down to some SEC games. I'm going to try and hit one every year, and really, what a one to start with. It was Alabama Georgia last year, and that was that great comeback game. The Ryan Williams catch and run. It was incredible. So anyways, yeah, looking forward to 2025. I like both the moves you talked about. I like bringing Ryan Grubb back. I think when you hire DeBoer as your head coach, you're kind of signing up for the whole package. You want to have that Grubb offense too. So you're finally going to get that. And I think finally you're going to get a hand-picked quarterback that they can build around. I know Milroe is a great athlete, but I don't know that really fits the scheme they wanted. So now they got 3 guys to pick from. We'll see what they come out with in fall camp. Looks like the veteran Simpson, but they have 2 good names around him. But yeah, what I really, really like about Alabama, in fact, I've got them higher than most in the country. I have them number 4 preseason overall, number 2 in the SEC. I really like, similar to Penn State, they're really veteran. A lot of guys came back from the draft. If you watch the NFL draft every year, you're seeing 10 to 12 Bama players get picked every year. This year, you only saw 5. And a lot of that is because the defenders all came back to Tuscaloosa. So extremely veteran, a lot of star power. And I love the offensive coordinator hire. So I like Alabama to make it to Atlanta.
Down in Baton Rouge, it's year 4 for Brian Kelly and LSU. He's got some pressure on him, obviously. He's lost 3 straight openers. And they got another tough one, week 1 at Clemson. And past couple of years, it's been offense and the defense has been slacking. I mean, they wasted a Heisman year with Jaden Daniels. Nussmeier puts up solid numbers last year. The defense improved a little bit in Blake Baker's first year as the defensive coordinator. But that passing game and Garrett Nussmeier, deep, talented wide receiver room, it should be great again. Can LSU get back to playing more complementary football, both sides of the ball? What's your ceiling for, honestly, an LSU team that I'm not like as high as I thought I would be on going into the season?
Yeah, well, I think my ceiling's pretty high with them. I've got them number 10 in the country, number 4 in the SEC, and both of those numbers would imply probably a playoff pick.
Mhm.
So depending on how the losses shake out and the strength of the wins and all that, but that's right in the playoff conversation as an at-large. I'm really banking on Blake Baker, and he did great work at previous stops. And last year, it wasn't the breakthrough I hoped, but it was a transition year, and he had an injury to deal with Harold Perkins, a do-it-all guy at linebacker. So I think with Perkins back, he's a surefire All-American. Great linebacker core there. Blake Baker, number 2, is second year. And also, guys, number 1 transfer haul in the country. So you're already talking about a top 5 or top 10 recruiter every year. Now you're bringing in the number 1 haul of transfers in the country. I think that's going to go a long way. And then schedule-wise, I think it's important that 2 swing games that I see for them that might determine their fate are Florida and A&M. Teams I've got 4th and I think 6th in the SEC, or 5th and 6th in the SEC. Both of them in Baton Rouge. I think that's crucial. I think they can get to 10-2 or 9-3 and be a competitive playoff candidate. So that's what I've got for them. Great offense. I didn't even touch on the offense, but that goes without saying. It's going to be excellent. Just a matter of how much gains they can get on defense.
Yeah, Brett, we can't get out of the SEC without mentioning Kirby Smart and the Dogs. Last year was just a strange, uncharacteristic year for Kirby and this Georgia team. They couldn't run the football. They were ranked around 102nd in the country in running the football. Their wide receiver core led the nation in drops and just consistently banged up along their offensive line, which led to very inconsistent play throughout the year with that group. Defensively, at times, they would look like that Death Star defense like we're used to with Glenn Schumann and Kirby Smart, and we've become accustomed to under Kirby. And then at times they would just get uncharacteristically pushed around and just out physicaled, like in the Ole Miss game, in that Notre Dame game, in the Sugar Bowl. And yet they still found a way to win the SEC with one of the toughest schedules in the country. So this year, they only have 3 true road games because of the neutral sites with rivals Florida and Georgia Tech. They're playing Georgia Tech in the Mercedes-Benz Dome this year. The Dogs' win total is currently set at 9.5 on FanDuel and DraftKings, which is the lowest since Kirby's second year in Athens. Do you expect to see more consistent play out of the Dogs this season?
Well, I think it'll look more like last year. And that's not a knock. I mean, that's still good enough to win the conference. It's still a playoff team. I think you're going to see more of the 2024 edition than you were compared to the dynasty years, the 2021 through 23. Those were elite teams. They ranked number 1 in my game grader for 3 straight years. But last year finally looked a little human. You touched on some of the struggling points, the drop balls, maybe the lack of separation at receiver. They missed a lot of tackles last year, uncharacteristic. But I think they improved a lot from the portal. They brought in 2 great receivers. I really like this defense. And it's crazy because I cover all 4 conferences, and that means all 68 teams. And you look at a team like Boston College or Wake, and it's just like there's no blue chippers at all. Then you cover Georgia, and it's like 5-star, 5-star, 5-star. You got so many 5-stars and top 100 guys. It's just a conveyor belt of talent. So I think they're going to be strong enough to make it back to the playoff. Something like 10-2. I like the over that 9.5. But probably more in the sense of a last year type Georgia team than the Kirby Smart dynasty teams.
All right, so we covered the Power 2. Before we get to the Big 12 and the ACC, let's stop in South Bend. We got to talk about the Irish because, they don't belong to a conference, so they don't really fall into one of these categories here. Obviously, Mike Denbrock is back. The offense is going to look completely different in my mind because the quarterbacks are completely different. Riley Leonard and CJ Carr. I mean, Riley Leonard just used his legs a lot more than CJ Carr is going to. Obviously, got the running backs, the offensive line, everything is there. The defensive side of the ball is replacing a lot. I think they're replacing 5 or 6 starters. They did get a lot from the transfer portal. One of my quips with you is where's Leonard Moore on your All-American team, man? Like this guy he came out of nowhere last half of the year last year, replacing Benjamin Morrison, and he's just one of those really highly touted DBs that Notre Dame has. And I think their defense is going to be solid this year. What are your thoughts on Notre Dame?
Yeah, well, fair criticism there. Basically, I had to pick one of the Notre Dame defensive backs. I went with Mr. Pick 6, Christian Gray. He had so many big time plays. I could definitely see Leonard Moore growing into an All-American spot by the time we talk in December with the All-American committee. So yeah, definitely tons of candidates on this defense. Number 4 defense in the country for me last year. Number 1 passing defense in the country. And you saw that how they clamped down on Georgia and against Penn State and even Ohio State. I know that they lost, but it wasn't a total blowout. It wasn't a meltdown like Oregon did against them. So, and also a coordinator, Urban Meyer calls this the coordinator signing of the offseason, bringing Chris Ash in. They lost Al Golden, but I think they backfilled pretty strongly with Chris Ash. So yeah, I like this as a playoff team for sure. And I think what's different nowadays with Notre Dame is back in the Brian Kelly era, they'd make a playoff run and then maybe they'd take a couple years to reload and round into form again. But I think you're going to see a steady playoff, like a perennial playoff team with Marcus Freeman, the way that he's recruited, number 7 in the 5-year recruiting rankings, and they're keeping their players too. They're not all transferring out. So a lot to like from Notre Dame. Number 1 offensive line in the country for me in my unit rankings. Jeremiah Love, a first-team All-American running back. That guy's incredible. His run against Penn State, I mean, that should be on the all-time highlight reel. It was incredible. So yeah, their season comes down to 3 games, really. I think Miami, A&M, and USC. So you go 11-1, you're a lock for the playoff. 10-2 gets a little questionable, but I still think they'd be in. We'll see how that all shakes out. But you got to go 2 out of 3 against those teams. I think they will.
All right, America's Conference, the Conference of Chaos, the Big 12. You mentioned it before, kind of just the most unpredictable conference out there, as evidenced by last year with Arizona State and BYU being picked towards the bottom, and obviously Arizona State going to the playoff. Let's talk about the boys in Lubbock who have been spending some cash this offseason, and they haven't been just throwing it around, right? According to you, they're getting quality in the portal. They got 15 blue chippers coming in. Joey McGuire has hired 2 fantastic coordinators, and Mac Leftwich on the offensive side of the ball, and defensive coordinator, I think Lance's man crush, Sheil Wood. Can can Texas Tech, can they compete for a Big 12 title, and can they find their way in the CFP and make some damage?
I think so. I think this is a generational type moment for Texas Tech. There's been great articles written about it and a lot of coverage. My spin on it is that, they're never the top recruiters, but the way that they just pulled their money together for this 2025 transfer class, it's kind of an all in moment. 15 blue chippers that were signed in the transfer portal. Incredible. More than the entire rest of the conference combined. So that goes to show you the scale of this thing. And then each year I put together, obviously, an all American team and all Big 12 team, but I also added in an all transfer team a couple years ago just because of all the transfer activity. But to go to show you, Texas Tech has 10 guys on the all transfer team. It's incredible. So I think they're bringing in like a generational crop of talent. It's a matter of how quick it can all gel together. It was a decent season last year. There was a lot of one-score games that went both ways. But I think with the coordinators, all this talent coming in, I love their linebackers, love their defensive line they just built. It could be one of the best in the country. So it's a whole new look of Texas Tech. And in a wide open conference, they have as good a shot as anybody. I've got the number 2 in the league. I have them playing in Dallas against Arizona State.
Well, Brett, one of the best names for a rivalry game is the Butt Bowl, which is between Baylor and Texas Tech. And unfortunately, with these super conferences that we have now, we're not getting that this year. So maybe there's a chance we end up seeing the Butt Bowl in the Big 12 title game. It's possible. But I want to talk about the Baylor Bears. They were one of the hottest teams in the country down the stretch last year, finishing the regular season going 6-0, averaging over 40 points per game on offense with that Jake Spavital offense. They bring back a ton of production on that side of the ball, like star quarterback Sawyer Robertson, who we've seen on a lot of people's top 10 quarterback list in the country this year, and breakout running back Bryson Washington. Where do you have the Bears in this wide open, crazy Big 12 race this year?
Yeah, well, if you like returning starters, returning production, this is your team. This is your pick, along with Arizona State. I mean, they bring pretty much that whole roster back from last year, and I know the record might not look that great, but break it down into 2 halves of the season. The first half of the season, they didn't have their quarterback right. They were mixing guys around. I think it was a Toledo transfer.
Yep.
But then in the second half, it really clicked. So first half, they ranked 45th in offense for me. Second half of the year, 7th. So you're talking about a top 10 offense. Really, the same core of guys coming back. 4 out of 5 starters up front. All the receivers, all the running backs. Trigg at tight end is a great game changer. So I really like this team. And then your question is defense, but your head coach is Dave Aranda. I think with a lot of starters back, I mean, he's a defensive guru. I think they get it to click. So to answer your question, thinking high level Big 12, I think the power is really returning to the state of Texas. There's been great runs from Iowa State and Kansas State and last year Arizona State, but I could really see this becoming the Texas Conference again with TCU and Texas Tech and Baylor, all the funds that they're throwing at their program. Even Houston is really improving. So I think the power is returning to the state of Texas, and it's a matter of which ones make it to Dallas. But you got 3 great candidates with Tech and Baylor and TCU.
All right, let's finish off with the ACC. I want to touch on Miami real quick. I have obviously, ever since this podcast has been birthed, I am not a Carson Beck guy. And it's not necessarily because I just think he's a terrible quarterback. But again, it seems like you might agree with me a little bit because you've got Haynes King and Kevin Jennings over him on your all ACC teams. What I know with that Shannon Dawson offense with Miami, they're going to put up points. Obviously, it worked wonders for Cam Ward last year. What are your expectations for Miami this year, and specifically on the offensive side of the ball with Carson Beck?
Yeah, well, I would really consider them for my overall ACC pick. I know that Clemson was locked in by everybody in the country as a top 5 team and the automatic ACC pick. To me, it really was a contest. It was wide open for me. I really compared them, all summer, all winter. And really the only liability I found, one of the main liabilities was Carson Beck. I don't know how that's going to work. He played really well in 2022, or maybe I'm off by a year, 2023. Mm-hmm. Last year, came into the season as the preseason Heisman favorite. It did not click at all. And going back to that game I was at in Tuscaloosa, Georgia, Bama, that first half, it looked like he was seeing ghosts. I think he threw 3 picks. Now, granted, the second half, he looked like a Heisman. So it's very hit or miss. It's boom or bust. He had a winter injury, so he wasn't doing much in spring ball. So, that's definitely a question mark. I don't like question marks when I'm trying to pick a winner. So, definitely a question. But to answer your question with Miami, it's definitely the best talent acquisition team. I mean, top 25 in transfers and high school the last 3 years, surpassing Clemson as the top recruiter. So they have a lot of firepower, but I think Clemson, with all those starters back, I think it's 19 or 20 starters back, the more proven product. I'm going to go with Clemson over Miami.
All right, Brett, a team that Tyler and I both really like going into this year, and it seems like a lot of other people do too, and rightfully so. We're big fans of Brent Key. We think that he's one of those that just does more with less. And, looking at your metrics too, it looks like he grades out as the best hire of the 2023 cycle with a plus 19.6 impact on your game grader metric. The Jackets, they bring back their dynamic backfield duo of Haynes King and running back Jamal Haynes, and they were able to hold on to their great offensive coordinator, Buster Faulkner, who we're really high on. Can this Jackets team compete for an ACC title this year under Brent Key?
I think absolutely. And, here's a couple things I like about him is you touched on with Brent Key. He inherited a mess. He really did. And he turned it into a winner. 5-3 in the conference last year, really had Georgia beat. It was a great game, a coin flip, but I like to think they were toe to toe with Georgia last year and bring a lot back. So I love the dynamic at quarterback and running back with Haynes King and Jamal Haynes. I like the addition at receiver. They brought in Eric Rivers. But the offensive line, that's Key's calling card. That's his expertise. I think they're going to be strong again. They never get enough credit, really. They should be a Joe Moore Award finalist most years. The amount of, you look at my metrics and their performance, especially with some 3-star guys. So great coaching going on. But the thing I like best about Georgia Tech, and this is part of the forecasting method, is you got to look at schedule. The schedule lottery nowadays, because there's no divisions. There's these super conferences with 18 teams. And the schedules are so unbalanced. So when you look at it with Georgia Tech, they only play one of my top 7 ACC teams. What that means is you're playing 7 from the bottom half of the league. So I know that might not win them all, but I think they're going to be favored in a lot of ball games, a lot of winnable games. I mean, Wake Forest, Virginia Tech, Cuse, Boston College, those should be 4 straight wins right there. Duke and NC State still should be favored. Pitt's kind of a coin flip, and then Clemson would be tough, but. So many winnable ball games for them in the ACC slate that they could sneak into it. They can be 7-1 and win some tiebreak scenario into Atlanta for sure.
All right, Brett, we can't get out of here without talking about Clemson and old Dabo. Obviously the expectations are there just to win ACC championships. They've been doing that. But it seems like this year the expectation is, and rightfully so, is to compete for a national championship. I mean, they bring in Tom Allen, defensive coordinator, the coordinator like duo there in general with Garrett Riley and Tom Allen. What they're bringing back along that defensive front, Cade Klubnik, veteran quarterback that had, in my opinion, was the most improved player at the highest level of college football last year from year over year, what he did in 2023 to what he did in year 2 in Garrett Riley's system with those receivers that they've got coming back. What do you think this Clemson team is not just obviously an ACC championship contender, but I'm talking about competing for a national championship this year? Are they that good?
So tough to call. I mean, the ACC to me is the 4th of the 4 conferences. So picking them to win the ACC, I guess, isn't saying too much because now you got to compare them against some giants. I mean, Georgia, Bama, Texas, Ohio State, Penn State. I don't know how they fare against that tier. In fact, we're going to learn right away against LSU in that opener. But I'll give a lot of credit to Cade Klubnik and the young receiver core. They really stepped up in the back half of that season, and especially against Texas. So I guess in a way they did prove themselves against Texas in the playoff last year. But yeah, I think the most veteran team in the conference, the most veteran in the country, actually, like 20 starters back, All-American quarterback, the number 1 D-line, number 1 linebackers, number 1 D-backs, 1-1-1 all the way across on my unit rankings in the ACC. Coordinator hire, I like that. You touched on that. It took a step back after Brent Venables left, but now they got a great one again. So you know what? I think they'll win the conference, and I think they will be competitive against that tier. I think you'll see a kind of a 1-score game against LSU, no matter which way it ends up. And then I think they'll take care of South Carolina this year in the finale. I think that they're going to win that one, go on to the playoff with a bye, and we'll see. I think other teams might catch up to them. Right now they have the advantage of being veteran, but over the course of 12, 13, 14 games and 4 months, these younger teams like Ohio State and Oregon, they're going to catch up on the national stage. So, yeah, long-winded answer there. I like what Dabo has built and continued to build, and this is their year to cash in again and maybe one last glimmer of hope in the playoff bracket for them.
Brad, this has been awesome, man. We really appreciate you taking the time to come on with us today, sharing your wealth of ball knowledge with us. Again, tell the people where they can find you, where they can get the preview magazine, and let them know also what you got going on in season this year.
Yeah, thanks. Well, you guys know your stuff. It sounds good that we're agreeing on a lot of teams. That strength in numbers. Good minds think alike. So that's great. Yeah, thanks for having me on, and good luck with the 2025 season with the podcast. It was great to have you featured in the book. But yeah, so the 2025 season preview magazine is available now. We have the digital copy along with the hard copy, and like I said, hard copies are shipping out. We're got a truck out yesterday, another truckload coming out tomorrow. And if you buy the hard copy, you do also get the digital. So for those 3 or 4 days that it's with USPS, you get access right away to the digital copy. But people love the hard copy. There's still a place for it. You bring it to the beach, to the lake, have it next to the TVs on Saturdays. But yeah, you hinted at this. We are launching an in-season product this year. It's called Pick Six Plus. And what it is, it hits your email inbox every Tuesday morning from week 0 to the playoffs. And it's everything you love about the preview magazine, all my advanced stats and metrics, but updated every week. That way you see how these teams are performing. I have opponent matchups, so you could look real quick against Ohio State versus Notre Dame and see where they stack up against each other. Their talent profiles, who has the more NFL mock draft picks, who has the more 4-star, 5-star guys. And then if you're into the gambling element of it too, we have all that info too. We got game logs against the spread, situational stats, like how's a team coming off a bye? How are they as a home favorite? Every stat you could think of is in there. So give it a look. We have a sample document up there to see what it looks like, pick6previews.com. And yeah, would appreciate you taking a look. And again, thanks for having me on. And it's going to be a heck of a season. I can't wait.
Again, guys, that's Brett Ciancia with Pick Six Previews. We appreciate you guys listening and tuning in. Continue to follow us on all of our socials and Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. And until next time, I'm Tyler Noe. That's Lance Barton. Take care. We'll see you then.